All right, all right. We'll get cooking in just a minute. Reed Coltis, how you doing, sir?
What's going on, Dave? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So you were saying that you were doing a little fishing?
Oh, you got to sneak it in from time to time. I got off the
That's-
coast of California, checked out the islands a little early, up by LA, but they're starting to show up.
All right, cool. Well,
You do any
for
fishing,
those of you
Dave?
who joined us a little bit early, we'll get started in just a minute. Let us know where you're calling from. Actually, change your text or your chat settings so that it goes to everyone, so everybody can see. And let us know where you're coming in from. I know, Reed, you're out there. Where are you now?
Right now, I'm in San Diego, Dave, hanging out with all the contractors.
There you go. Heard that. You're not gonna believe where I am. Nobody will believe where I am. I'm usually in Woodstock, Maryland, which is just outside of Columbia, Maryland, or Ellicott City area. For those of you who know Maryland, not too far from DC. Is everybody hearing me? We are live, right?
Yeah.
I think we're live. There it is. We're just waiting for somebody. Davita's from VA. Carrie from Colorado, and Daniel's in DC. Nice. I'm normally in DC, but I'm not right now. I literally am not anywhere close to even the United States right now. It's fantastic. Tampa, Florida. Let me see how you say that name. 1 second. Let's see what I got here. I want to see how do you wait a minute, and not Tammy. I wanted is it Tana? Is that how you say your name?
Tammy.
Tanny? Oh,
Tammy.
I got you, I got you, Tammy.
Okay.
I unmuted you by mistake.
That's fine.
I could say your name, but I wasn't sure about the other name, the one Time. Gotcha.
Except by time, yes.
Time. Gotcha. All right. Fantastic. Well, great. I just want to make sure I did that right, Time. Love it. Let's see where else we got here. Judy from Frederick, not too far from where I am, usually. Fantastic. Just let us know where you're coming in from. Always like to know. So did you catch anything, Reed, out there?
We got a few halibut and a few little like barracuda and stuff. Nothing too exciting this time of year.
Well, you're a better man than me. I don't know. I like to catch things. I don't necessarily like to fish. Fishing
Always fun
requires
catching. Always fun
patience.
catching.
So
You got some
we
fish
got
where you're
Mo
at though, Dave?
what's that?
You got some fish where you're at there?
I do believe there's some fish out here where I am. I am in Greece, of all places, at the moment, which is awesome. I wasn't sure about being able to make this because I had a difficulty with the plane, but I did make it, so we're good. And we'll get started in just a minute. Let us know where you're coming from. We got Arlington, Virginia, Eric. And let's see, Claire from Philly. Mo's from Denver. You got Jenny. You got to meet up with Jenny, Mo. Bill's from Detroit. Love it. Guntersville, Alabama. Sydney. Love that. I don't know where Guntersville is. You ever been there? I don't know where Guntersville is. No, I know where Dayton is, Lisa. From Dayton. Crooked River Ranch, Oregon. That sounds awesome, Angela. Oviedo, Florida. All right. And Orange County, not too far from you. Orange County, right? And if everybody could take their chat and make it to everyone, that way, if you want to chat things back and forth, we love to do that. The screen's not adjusting to mine. Kelly, hold on 1 second, Kelly. Let's see what we can do about that. Is anybody else having trouble? Okay, let me see which one that was. Hold on. Kelly Cole. 1 second. Kelly, what's the issue with your screen? Kelly Johnson from Middleton. Can you get your screen that doesn't want to size right or something? Is that what you said? I don't know why it would do that. You got it. Fantastic. All right, we'll get cooking. You ready, Reed?
Let's do it.
As I know, believe it or not, we're going to be talking about contract flow down clauses. And I tell you what, you have some of the best stories, Reed, for folks. I cannot wait to hear, see if anybody else has any stories like yours. But
Well,
I
that's
always
dangerous
love your
when you
story.
start telling people you have good stories about compliance challenges.
Crazy stories, I should say, right? So, and Reed's a little bit under the weather, right, Reed?
I'm doing all right. I'll speak up. Hopefully we can get through this. I'm excited to talk to you, Dave. I know you're calling in from halfway across the world. It's always fun to talk with you. So thanks for making time for that.
That's awesome, man. Love it, love it. Welcome to Gov Brief. We love it. Reed has been around the industry for a while, and has been working with Dacian. How long you been with Dacian?
Well, man, I've been collaborating with Dacian and some of these folks for about a decade now, but I've been focusing on helping them with their business for about 3, 4 years now. So yeah, before that I was doing compliance as a contracts manager, really executing operationally on the compliance flow down side and doing all that within the industry. So I did that for about a decade prior with a larger contractor.
That's awesome. And so, what I love is you bring your stories, and I think everybody can relate to having challenges with flow down clauses, no matter where you are in the supply chain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and today I'll try to bring a little bit of a pragmatic view of what it looks like to do this stuff for, especially for those that don't understand it or haven't had that much exposure to it. Try to make it make sense in layman's terms. Give them some idea of, wow, hey, I do contracts in the commercial space and the federal space, and there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of cautionary tales I can bring to both. So
Love it.
we'll do that.
Love it. Looking forward to it. I'm trying to grab the handouts for us, but we're getting those geared up for us. And I just want to make sure everybody know we're not affiliated with any other federal agency or any other agency for informational purposes only. We'll be talking a little bit about the FAR here and there, right? Right, Reed?
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
FAR is all over right now.
So it's not legal advice. That's where I was leading. And it doesn't guarantee any contract awards or resolutions. And anybody from the government, and we love the government. If you're from the government, let me know. We'd like to know what you're doing in contract flow down clauses. It is being recorded and AI is prohibited. You know why? You know why, Reed?
Why is that, Dave?
Because we're real freaking human beings. That's why, Reed.
That we are. That we are.
That is true. You will know that. All right, let's get to know each other just a little bit. Let us know why you're here today. Maybe you're new to the federal contracting. You want to understand how the flow down, all this flow down stuff works. Maybe you want to know if a specific contract clause applies to you. Maybe you have an issue already with a government or a prime, or maybe your boss made you come, and anybody can choose. You can choose as many as you want in there. Always love to hear what you guys are doing. And whether you have federal contracts now, either as a prime or as a sub. And there's also state and local as well that you can do. So we love participation. Polls are one of the ways that we do participation, but we love the chats. Love to know where you are. If you have any issues, raise your hand. You can pop stuff in the Q&A. I'll try to keep up on both or all of those and make sure you get what you need. There's also an email at the bottom that you can send to support@clausemanager.com if you don't want everybody and their mother to see things. And we love those reactions. I'm going to have the handouts in just a minute, and I'll ask for reactions to that. But let me know that you're still alive, but give me a thumbs up every once in a while. We do love that. You'll have the session presentation. You have executive orders. There's a bunch of FAR references. I mean, a lot of things that are going to be in there for you that you can take away from this session. Real quick, we'll give you an introduction to Clause Manager as well as Dacian. There's two different folks that are helping us out today. I'll make sure you already met Reed, but there's a lot around flow down clauses, and they're changing every day, aren't they, Reed?
Never stops. Even some of the resources we shared with you have already changed since we pulled them together. We'll help make sure that you know how to stay on top of that.
And this particular administration making this stuff change faster and faster, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh, we'll get into some of that, but every time you turn around, it's a question of, is there going to be more compliance? Is there going to be less compliance? Well, we know that there's not going to be no compliance. Staying on top of it, knowing what to think about, and being able to have the right direction to make those decisions and a system in place to do it is we'll give you some hints and tricks on that.
Love it.
Really.
Love it. And we're going to start out even early on. You're going to do a case study. And I love these because we can all learn, especially from stuff that you've already experienced. And some of these are just easy things to overlook if you're not paying attention, right, Reed?
Oh, it's so easy. I mean, there's so many things that are not immediately in front of you that you have to think about when you're doing business in this space. Doesn't matter what level of the supply chain that you're in. Yeah.
Yep. So we'll do a case study. We'll give you an overview of these, the types of flow down clauses, and this thing, the annual federal audit for prime contractors. What could go wrong, right, Reed?
Nothing. It's a breeze.
It's a breeze. And so we'll get into best practices that you can take away for today. We will do some Q&A with you guys and have some next steps about that. So Clause Manager is a software program that was developed and actually works together with a lot of things that Dacian's doing right now. But they're headquartered in North Carolina. They already have 4,000 plus compliant prime contracts on the system. And they're protecting over $100 billion in revenue. And the most important thing is they do flow down through the entire supply chain, and it doesn't matter where you are in the supply chain. The beta is available. We're actually into early adopter, right, Reed? That's what I hear.
That's right. Trying to create a solution to help anybody out there in the environment, in the industry. Anybody who wants to stay on and talk about that, we'll show you what we got today.
Super. So tell me a little bit about Dacian, because you're working with Dacian, and you're pretty much an SAP shop, right?
Yep. Dacian was founded to help clients, the big contractors, deal with all of their accounting needs and expand on what SAP does for them to put systems in place, and as well as guide them in sort of professional services, how to get there, what they need to do to think about all these considerations and systematize it. We've helped some of the likes of the other clients. If you click ahead on the right-hand side, you guys might recognize a few of them. There might be a few of them. Raise your hand if you are with one of them. I'd love to see one of my existing clients. If you're there, always love to hear from you. In any case, we do a lot out there. We wanted to do a kind of a thought leadership talk and sponsor this alongside our sister company, Clause Manager, who has taken all this that we've done and the processes outside of SAP and made it available on a more broad platform for tier 2, tier 3 clients as well. I
love it. All right, I'm going to end this poll in about 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3. Any last minute stragglers, wallflowers, unite, answer the questions. We'd love to hear from people. All right, here we go. You ready for this, Reed?
Let's see it.
47% are here brand new to this, and they were trying to figure out what it means. Love that. How about if you had this kind of thing when you were brand new in the industry? How would you like that?
Wish somebody would at least point me to the right resources. You can spend all day looking for this stuff. So while I'm not telling people what to do, I'm not giving you compliant legal advice. I want you to know, here's some things that you might think about to protect yourself, or at least consider and make sure it does not apply to you, or if it does apply to you, think about getting some help. If you need to put a system in place, we can set you in the right direction. Love it.
And then we have 17% been here. Great to have you guys back. 83% brand new to GovBrief. Welcome to GovBrief. We appreciate you guys joining us today. And we got folks that are across the board for having business either as a prime or a sub. Fantastic. I appreciate that. All right, next question is just let us know what your role is in contracting, because this does make a difference. If you're responsible for DCMA compliance, you know it. Don't you, Reed?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to keep this at a level that anybody in the business can understand. It doesn't just stop at legal though, right, Dave? I mean, this stuff impacts everyone.
It does not at all. And I'm going to share the session docs with everybody. Let me do this and see if it'll work. Boom. All right. And when you're done with that, if you can check this link and make sure when it pops up, it looks something like this. And you can download in the upper right-hand corner. You can download everything. It'll all come down in a zip file. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there for you. Everybody got that? If you can't get to it, let me know because I want to make sure that everybody can get that. All right, fantastic. I think we're in good shape, Reed. So we're ready to rock and roll. Start telling us about what these contract flow down clauses is. What are these things?
So if you're new to flow down clauses, we'll talk about them in the sense of, how do they impact your work? How does it impact your relationship with the federal government, your suppliers, your actual customers who might be a supplier in that chain? And we'll touch a little bit on the difference between mandatory and non-mandatory clauses and some things that are silent. Why don't you jump to the next one, Dave?
Yeah, there's nothing happening here.
Oh, yeah, who's heard of
We got
DOGE?
all these things started, and then we have DOGE on top of that. And so it's from regulations. Tell us about what this all starts and how we can get our hands around it.
Yeah. So if you've never heard of flow down clauses, I understand some of you do. Hopefully, a lot of you do. When we refer to a flow down clause, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the federal government. It doesn't have to be just the U.S. federal government, but in this context, commonly known as a flow down is all of the regulatory requirements, laws, regulations, often known as the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the DFARS. There's also commercial clauses, anything that is in that fine print within your contract that may apply to you in the way that you do business, and things that apply to your suppliers that you need to make sure they're abiding by as well. Right, Dave?
Absolutely. They got it. And it doesn't stop in the middle either, does it?
No. Why do they call them flow downs? Well, it's
It
because
goes all the way down.
They do. They flow all the way down. It's not just a clause that is applicable to your business. It's not just a best practice. It is not even something that you could consider doing or not doing. If it is applicable to your project, and it becomes a necessity. And from a prime contractor perspective, or even a next tier supplier down, everybody has a compulsory responsibility to evaluate if it's legally bound to them and if it's going to apply to their subcontractors, because a decision has to be made. If you're going to go out and get work to help, do the work that you have to perform under your contract, you got to make sure that if those flow down clauses need to be applied and shared with your supplier base.
And does this apply to services as well? It could be products and services?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't just stop if you're providing a product. It could be also applicable to labor and labor resourcing. There's different rules that apply to all of them. It depends on the size of the contract, and it depends on the complexity of the contract and the type of contract vehicle. So these are all the considerations you need to think about. One of the biggest things, if you are going out for additional work, what doesn't matter what layer of that supply chain you're in, if you're getting somebody to help you, you don't take anything away from it. I just want you to remember, it doesn't mean that you just get to waive the right and say, hey, supplier, you need to go out and see if these clauses apply to you. You want to verify that they are going to abide by them. I think that's something we're hearing more and more from the government, Dave.
I do believe you're right. And speaking of products, tell us about your case study. This is one of my favorite case studies. When we first started talking, you told me about this. So, and you'll understand why I love this in a minute, because we don't have to repeat these problems that you may have run into for yourself, right, Reed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you guys don't take anything other than this particular case away from this session, want to tell you, the reason I tell this story is because it really hones in on the importance of making sure that if you are managing the operations within your business, or you're evaluating the compliance requirements of your flow downs that apply to the different, if you want to call them process streams, this is important. And if you fall into one of these different process groups, you'll understand very quickly why it's important, because it's not just a legal review type of thing, Dave. I mean, this stuff goes far beyond it. And when I was a contracts manager, we had a contract with the Taiwanese government. And with that contract, it actually wasn't a FAR flow down. It was a commercial flow down. But and the same logic applied to this contract as it would if you were doing business with the federal government or even possibly a foreign business, and they had requirements that they were having to satisfy for their federal government. So this really can't apply to everybody. And I tell this story because it's so important. But what we were doing this big, giant complex for the Taiwanese government. And obviously, as you know, there's some tension there between them and the Chinese. And they had a big, bold block right in their contract that said, do not buy from Taiwan. And if I want to jump to the end of the story, we had one single product that ended up saying it was made in China, happened to get into the system. And at the end of the day, the entire project got held up because of it. Well, we went back and tried to figure this out. So what happened? Well, when we went out and established our projects within our business, we went into our first tier suppliers and we said, do not buy anything from China. Please make sure that on all of our purchase orders, we went and said, do not buy from China. Nothing from here should state China on it. There's a big rejection clause and there are liquidated damages that will apply to this. Well, that's a big deal. Obviously, if an entire system can get rejected if something was bought and it had been built in China, we don't want to have delivery delays and cash impacts and all sorts of things. So this was a quality issue as much as it was a purchasing issue. But what happened was we went out and we placed our order with a distributor, and that distributor did not catch that requirement and they didn't see it, and they shared it with their next tier down and they went Staples or something. It didn't matter. They went out to the field and bought a part and they didn't verify if that thing was bought in China. One single part ended up being delivered and drop shipped straight to the field. And if we would have done a better job to say, you must flow these requirements down to your sub-tier contractors, and put it in big bold letters on our POs and put it in a system and make sure they had a system to make sure who they were buying from was going to follow the same rules, we could have avoided this whole thing. Instead, one of our best had to jump on a flight and go swap that thing out while they were in inspection, and we were able to save this whole thing. But we were seeing $10,000 delays every day until we could correct it. So huge.
There was a little liquidated damages clause that was also in that particular contract, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yep. So, and that was a simple thing. It was like a laptop or something, right?
Yeah. No, it was just a mouse. It was a mouse of all things.
It was a mouse
On an entire command system on a $200 million project. So, you know, what do we do, Dave? Well, we'll talk about a few of the things we did systematically, and that ultimately led me to help these guys build this system out where everybody could ensure that not only are they following the regulations, they have a systematic way to put it in place. So what's on their contract gets flowed down to their suppliers, and they can also use that sort of information to flow down that to their suppliers. So nobody gets lost in the sauce.
Love it. So let's find out how they're doing it now. I have a pretty good idea of what the number one is, but we're going to let everybody know. So how do you manage your clause flow downs now? You don't? Maybe it's sticky notes and napkins. Maybe throw things in Excel and kind of do some tracking of your own. Maybe you have a library of clauses, or maybe you have some sort. What does CLM stand for?
Contract lifecycle management, Dave.
There you go. Contract lifecycle management.
There's a lot of really neat tools out there. I know a lot of people
Yep.
do a lot of different things, manage their contracts, negotiate their contracts. But the biggest thing we see missed is how do you bridge the data between your internal people and making sure that your quality folks, your program folks, your execution folks in the engineering project office, manufacturing folks, your shipping folks, how are they making sure that all those things are being abided by?
It touches a lot. We have one person at least that's doing it sticky notes and napkins. Or at least one honest person. Let's put it that way. Somebody that's being straight up. So as we start to get into, we're going to get into clause management and what that is in just a second. I'm going to leave this open for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and any last minute stragglers? Anybody we can guilt into it? Yeah, we got one. Did it by guilt. All right, here's what we got, Reed. 41% is doing Excel. That's what we figured, right? A lot of folks are plugging things in, and there's nothing wrong with Excel, right?
You got to use the tools that you have.
Yep. Nothing wrong with it. And then who's got one has SAP, and we got 12% that are looking to do SAP. So that's kind of cool. I know that's where you live. All right,
Yeah, it is.
fantastic. All right, so take us through this clause management multi-tier flow down.
So as I was mentioning, and you can let this thing fly through here, but
All right.
the
And
When
this
you
is in
start-
the handouts, by the way, so you don't have to read it all right now. And I know Reed's not going to read it right now.
No. I know these guys. I wanted to leave something for them to think about because everybody on this call is going to be at some level. There might be some gubbies on here, and you might be on the left-hand side. You're the person who's issuing the contract. That might be the government, or it could be your company, and you're issuing the contract to a prime contractor. A lot of times, that prime contractor is trying to manage this stuff in their ERP platform. A lot of times they're doing it at a high level with many suppliers, and we're just going to focus on one trail of it, right? If you think about it, you got different types of folks at different levels in this supply chain. You got your made to order folks, and they're going out and they're buying stuff from people who are making things to stock. Those guys are looking at stock and they're trying to figure out what's available today to buy all their materials and their parts. Another scenario might be, I need to hire a group of people to do my engineering and all the labor in it, but I need to hire smaller divisions underneath those and local divisions at small companies to satisfy these small business requirements. That might be another source of the supply chain. And no matter what point you are within the supply chain, if you click one more time, Dave, there are a lot of different types of clauses that can be applicable to each of those levels. Obviously, the FAR, DFAR at the very top are oftentimes going to apply to prime contractor, if not always. You got these things, DOGE and DEI coming out. You got a lot of change going on there. You got environmental social government stuff. One thing I wanted to help people do was make sure that if they wanted to buy from the right people, whether it is like don't buy from China or it's don't buy from the bad people who are exploiting children in X region, don't do that. And I want to control my supply chain from not doing that. There's flow downs that apply to that stuff. There's financial flow downs that impact your billing. There's quality flow downs that impact what needs to be inspected, how it needs to be inspected, how it needs to be shipped and packed, how it needs to be not from China. I mean, that's a common one. I use that because that could be commercial or not government by American Act, right? So anyways, there's a lot of different things all the way down to conflict minerals and just simply, yeah, go ahead.
And just like you said, you have DOGE, which is brand new, and DEI, which reversed. Last year, everything was DEI. DEI was being plugged into everything in the Fed space. And I mean, if you were from our side, we were marketing it, right? We were marketing DEI, but now it's exactly the opposite. Everything's out of there. And if you're not removing those clauses, you could lose your contract. In fact, some have lost their contract by having that in their contract clauses.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, not only do you care about it from a I want to get paid perspective and I want to perform and get my stuff bought off and accepted, but to your point, you don't want to skirt this stuff and you want to do it the right way because you want to be able to continue doing business with the government or continue doing business for your prime contractor because you're following the rules and you're able to justify it. I think that's one of the biggest things people struggle with. They have good intentions. They say, well, I flowed down the contract clauses that were given to me to my supplier, but I don't know what my supplier did. They said they accepted it, but I have no visibility into what they're doing. And that's a big black hole right now. And I've heard more and more in some supply chain conferences that I've been going to, led by the US federal government, saying, well, just because you flowed those down and they accepted it, doesn't mean that you're off the hook making sure that what they did was in line with what they accepted. So there's a compulsory requirement from the prime contractor level down to ensure that these folks are abiding by the clauses and performing to what they said that they would perform to at each level. So
Yep. So when you do a lot of work with the military, right?
I do. Aerospace and defense is probably the biggest area where folks are seeing these things. Obviously, there's a lot of other federally regulated businesses that do contracting with the federal governments around the world. Obviously, this is mainly targeted at US federal government, but a lot of the same types of requirements apply all around the globe. Local, state, federal governments are mimicking a lot of these things. It might not be the same verbiage, but pretty universally, these types of things are being applied. And in the US, these are the 6 business systems that we often hear of. And we see that there are requirements to meet different compliance needs for tracking flow downs and abiding by flow downs within each of these 6 business areas. So something to think about when you're thinking, trying to consider, how do I make sure my business is considering all of these areas in a systematic way? Well, we'll show you some of the different positions that you might think about in the next slide.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, the FAR is changing now. They're doing a major rewrite for that. So, and those clauses will be coming down right on top of everybody right away. Some of them immediately. So just like DEI, right? And DOGE, which is brand new.
Yeah,
So-
what's going to apply to me today and what's not going to tomorrow? I mean, the thing is that what we know that is not going to change is how much change is happening. We know that there's going to be change this year. We know that there's probably going to be change with the next regime of management and leadership in our country. And there's going to be change in the lowest level.
So Alexander's asking, do you have any idea when DFARS 252.204-7021 will be implemented?
That's a good question. Was a hot topic. I don't know if they have a firm date yet, but we'll provide you with direction on where you might go to consider that.
Love it. There you go, Alexander. That's how we do it here, Alexander. Anybody else want to throw anything in? We'll make sure we pop it up. All right, so this slide was specifically made to get everybody a headache, right, Reed?
Yeah, I love this one because what it does is really show people a visualization of how a business is run in a system. And you're probably going to get an eyesore just looking at it. But what I like to do is think about from the very beginning, when I'm estimating a project and I'm looking at all the requirements that are within that project, that are on the RFP document or even an RFI document from the very beginning, I am going to consider what contractual flow down requirements are going to impact my business, how much risk those are going to be on my business, and which ones apply to me and which ones don't, and which ones I need to flow down to my suppliers because they're in a piece of the work that I'm not really going to be responsible for performing, but rolls up under my responsibility. And in order to do that, you think about it from the very front of it, because that's something we should have done when I was executing these, is ensuring that I understood the pricing impact on my contracts for abiding by certain administrative details, reporting, tracking that some of these new regulations apply to. And it doesn't stop there. Obviously, once you win the contract, it impacts the way that you bill. It impacts the way that you track your government, property, equipment, materials. It impacts the way you deal with change. It impacts the way you deal with how you're going out and buying goods. It impacts how you're managing your projects and how you're tracking your costs. It impacts the way that you're performing and reporting out on your performance, all the way down to the end of the contract closeout when you have to show what you did and how you did and abide by all those accounting standards if you're at that level.
So for those of you who want to have this, you got it in your handouts, you can review it. I think it's a great slide because it does break these out. Is there anything you want to call out for the different colors and what you have this laid out or the different shades? You still with me, Reed?
No, I think that's just to think about it. Yep. Yeah. Just to think about it. The systematic needs of the impact of it are these ones and whites. Something we found is that a lot of people didn't have a way to do that within SAP. So my company went out and created a way to do this. Other companies have come out and done it on Excel, but it's dysfunctional. Other companies have done it and put it into a system of their own. And that's what we've tried to do.
And what I love this here because you cannot outsource your risk of flow down or anything else, right? You can't outsource your cybersecurity and have them take 100% of responsibility. You are actually, as a prime contract holder, or even in the supply chain, you're responsible for managing your own flow down risks, aren't you?
That's right, Dave. Yeah.
Can I take that away from you?
The thing to think about is when you're the prime contractor, again, if I can't say it again, you bear, even if you win work from the prime contractor, you're going to bear the full responsibility of the subcontractors underneath you. Doesn't matter what stage of that supply chain you're in. So you have to think about that. Think about how you're going to hold them accountable. And it's a big challenge because a lot of prime contractors might flow down everything in the kitchen sink. And even if you're a prime contractor, the government might throw everything at you in the kitchen sink.
The government throwing extra things at you? I don't believe it. Cannot happen.
We'll talk about some of the ways that they do that. Obviously, that's it always creates a tension between the contractors and prime contractors. I know I've been on both sides of it. I want to, if you're a prime contractor and you're evaluating the requirements that are on your contract from the beginning, you want to say, are these really relevant to my contract or not? And the suppliers, subcontractors should be asking the same questions when they receive these types of requirements from the prime. Because if it doesn't apply to your business, you shouldn't just be blanket accepting it, because you might be in a position where you can't perform to something that you've accepted because you didn't read through the finer print.
A lot of times, especially smaller companies, are just glad to get the contract, right?
That's right.
So what about mandatory versus non-mandatory? What is that?
For those of you that are not familiar with mandatory and non-mandatory clauses, want to just state that mandatory clauses often flow down under commercial and non-commercial prime contracts and are defined in these areas. These contract clauses are not negotiable. There are clauses that are non-mandatory. Like I mentioned before, you might be a small business and you might be able to waive some of these. You need to understand which type of clauses are mandatory and non-mandatory. There's a whole link in here that should be doing it. Shannon, always have your legal counsel review your contracts. Even if it's a small dollar amount, you may see things that slip in that do not apply, that you don't want to pop in, and you don't want to just blanket accept those without clarifying whether or not they really apply to you or not.
Yep. And that's what Janet said. Janet sent it to us, said, always have legal counsel review agreements. I couldn't agree more. And you see things that are being like a classic right now is CMMC, right? For dealing with materials that especially in the DIB, Defense Industrial Base, right? So we're seeing that being driven down. And that goes all the way down to the bottom of the crew.
Yep. That's
so what are some of the best practices?
So if you identify something from the front, I would, if you're a subcontractor, make sure that you are identifying which clauses apply to you or not. If you see things about products, but you're performing services, I'd make sure to point that out and have it removed. I would also, if you're a prime contractor, try to do a better job flowing these things down to your subcontractors and collaborating with them on which ones should apply and which ones shouldn't. I think if you engage in some transparent collaborative discussions, you save everybody a lot of time, make sure that you are understanding the risk. If you're negotiating terms with your suppliers.
You there? Uh-oh. I think we might have lost Reed. Did we lose you, Reed?
Hey, Dave, you there?
I am here.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure what happened. It just dropped off.
Yeah, you're on your phone now. Looks like.
It switched over.
That's wild. Well, first time for everything. Now you know it's live. We're not doing anything with AI, right, Reed?
I am not AI. My computer just decided to pivot off of it. So, hopefully you can still hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great, man.
Awesome. Awesome.
You look thinner, but you look great.
No, that's all right. So anyways, I was just saying, if you're a prime contractor, you want to just be willing to negotiate with your subcontractors and understand which ones are truly applicable to them, and be willing to have those discussions. Oh, that's great. Good to hear that, Janin.
Janet says audio is actually better now. And,
Perfect.
we do have a question. I think it's applicable right now. I know it's an anonymous attendee. I don't know how that works, but the prime mandates that you take the clauses, even if they don't apply. How can one push back on that without losing the subcontract? The prime will say, if you don't accept it, you cannot sign the subcontract. I can't imagine any prime would ever do that to anybody, Reed.
Oh my gosh. It happens all the time.
Every day.
I mean,
I'm only sarcasm runs deep in my family. Go ahead.
No, it's a dangerous game, right? Because you want to win the work, but if it's something you can't perform and it's truly going to cause a burden on your business to perform it, or you're not even set up to do it, you might truly think about whether you're want to do business with these folks or not,
Yeah.
especially if the government is saying that you need to abide by one level of regulations and the prime contractor is flowing you down even more strenuous versions of these requirements, and it's not something you can actually keep in your control, and they're not willing to budge. I try not to do business like that. I try not to accept those work. You really need to understand is, can I accept this? Or can I make a case that says, you're asking me to do these things and these are not reasonable. We're going to need a waiver for this.
And some of them are not going to waiver. I mean, just they're listing it here that booze, GDIT are the top two that they can think of right now. And it does happen. And it depends. I mean, obviously we want to win the work, right? Everybody wants to win the work, but we got to make sure that we understand what we're putting ourselves on the hook for, because some of this stuff can be serious and that can cause the prime. If you're a sub that is not managing it right, you can cause the prime to lose the contract, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one supplier that went out and bought a commercial product in support of my system caused the entire thing to delay days.
With $10,000 a day for liquidated damages. That's real.
Huge. It's huge.
That's real stuff. All right. So a couple other best practices, and then we'll wrap this up so we can do some more questions. Still with me, Reed?
Yeah. Yep. No, I was reading the question that was coming in through the chat.
All right, cool.
So if you're thinking about this from the very beginning, I think I mentioned, you're going to see different terms and conditions that are not just FAR and DFARs. You're going to see different things come through, different types of procurement vehicles. Make sure that you're reviewing it every time at the different stages of the contracting process. Because I'll tell you, more times than not, I have seen something come out in an RFP, and then when I receive a purchase order, it's referencing a whole new set of terms and conditions and a whole new set of flow down clauses. It's different than my RFP. So, word to the wise, make sure you're reviewing each of those contracting vehicles every single time, and you know which ones take precedence, because you might get into a trap, especially if you're a smaller one. And I'm speaking to the smaller guys, the tier 2, tier 3s at this point, because I've been in that position and I've been stuck and I've had to sign up to things that I didn't mean to, and I got caught in the after game. So keep that in mind. We can go to the next one.
So with your tailoring those flow downs, what do you mean by that? How do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say I'm caught in the middle of that supply chain and I've received some requirements and I'm doing a mix of work for my prime contractor and I'm a tier 2 sub. But I'm largely a manufacturing company, and I can't do all the building and assembly work, and I need to go out and do some service hiring to help me support my business in compiling all the stuff that I'm manufacturing or putting together on a system. Well, if I'm doing that, I shouldn't be flowing down all the product requirements and material quality requirements and everything that goes into buying materials and all of that to my services provider because it doesn't apply to them. Yes, you can flow it down to them and make them do all the work, but then you're just going to cause yourself delays in the procuring process, trying to get them to sign up to the work, and you're going to go back and forth. They're going to say, this applies to me, this doesn't. So take another extra hour. If you're on a lower tier supply contract or you're going out to a lower tier, to think about those things, to tailor it to who you're procuring additional stuff from.
Love it. Love it. All right. We're going to pop this in. We're going to answer some questions. I'm going to do this last poll. If you want to stick around, Reed, you up for doing the demo? You want to see if you get your computer back up?
I am. I'm going to try to reboot that while we're doing
right.
the poll, and we can review this poll while I'm
All right.
doing that.
That sounds like a plan. There's a couple questions in here we'll ask while we're doing that too. So if you want to stick around, let us know. If you don't want to stick around, that's okay. If you want to do a demo of Clause Manager and see how it works for you, you can do that as well. If you're using SAP, that would be the Dacian play, right, Reed? And if you need anything else,
Absolutely. If you're in SAP,
Yep.
if you're an SAP user and you want to talk about how you can do this directly out of SAP, I'm always happy to talk to you. If you're interested in exploring how you can do this outside of SAP, you're not an SAP user, stick around. We can talk about some of that.
Yeah. And they work in the same fashion, right?
Similar approaches. I mean, when you're managing flow downs between your internal processes and what you accept from the government and versus you're receiving purchase orders or sending purchase orders and trying to relay that information to your suppliers, that system of effort is very similar. It doesn't matter if you're big or small.
And it just, when it gets to be SAP size, that means that's a big deal. You're used to seeing a whole bunch of clauses if you're using SAP. I am throwing in the session docs. I want to make sure everybody gets those. Everybody will get a video recording. You'll have access to the video recording, the session docs that you have right there. You can download those. We'll also have a link in an email that goes out. You can schedule one-on-one meetings with Clause Manager folks, and you can check out a Clause Manager demo if you would like to do that. There's a couple folks that want to do it afterwards, which is great. There's some resources that you have here for everybody. Reed, I really appreciate what you did to pull those in. And as they change, we'll do our best to keep those updated in the folders. Does that sound good?
Yeah, Dave, why don't we talk about those a little bit?
Yep.
You want to click through some of them?
Yep. Certainly do that. You want me to hit the top one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think these
All
are some pretty neat things for people who don't know how to do this. I could have probably started here and left these guys with these resources and they would have been just as happy, but I wanted to tell those cautionary tales because it helps folks think about how to do this stuff and some of the considerations they need to have. But this is a really cool direct access to acquisition.gov and how to pull and download massive lists of data and siphon through information within the FAR.
Very cool.
If you've never used this before, it is really neat. There's also the CFR, and this is the ECFR. These are government sites where these things are constantly maintained. One of the things I kind of glossed over was the fact that every time you receive a contract, there's going to be a version of the clauses that apply to your contract, probably by year or by the timeline that you are accepting that contract or referencing back to a contractual period that you're doing.
And how about these?
Track
These work
of
too?
the version that is applicable to your. Yep.
And this is the Defense University, right? Acquisition University?
Yep. You hear me, Dave?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yep. This is a really nice tool. If you scroll down here a little bit, there are a whole bunch of stuff that you can do to browse through and look at risk analysis, all sorts of things that are put out by the education, the government, in order to help you do this stuff. I really like to make sure that I give people access to these because it helps you to keep track of what is going on and allow you to visualize all the risks.
Love that. I'm accepting everything that they give me here. So you guys can check those out. These are in the handouts as well. We got the Smart Matrix. Tell us about this one.
So this smart matrix is a really good way to get your clauses organized by type of clause, by the year of relevance, by all the data that is applicable to each of these for the type of contract you might have, and allows you to really dig into the different layers of the data without having to maintain your own clause of library. But being able to maintain your own clause of library should ultimately source back to something that the government is maintaining in order to keep track of all the versions. Because, right, Dave, I think we were talking about it before. Sometimes the government will issue a change and it's a compulsory change and it has to take place immediately and it's mandatory. And all those things happen a lot. And if somebody's not paying attention to those things, you might get caught being out of compliance for a recently modified change to the clauses.
This is pretty cool. Because they'll tell you and all these different, you'll gain understanding from this. If you just plug around in this a little bit and you know whether P or C, what does that mean? Do you know off the top?
A provision or a clause. So different types of flow downs, provisions within clauses, provisions and clauses are handled a little bit differently. Oftentimes they're used simultaneously, but in this context, referring to all that as a flow down. That's what we've been talking about. Really, when I say flow down, I mean any term and condition that could apply to your contract. But a lot of times people just talk about the FAR as a flow down. But systematically, if you have something that you need to abide by and you need your suppliers to abide by it too, it can be a flow down because you have to flow it down.
Yep. And NDIA, who is that?
The National Defense.
Industrial.
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
NDIA puts out some really cool stuff. This FAR flow down book is commonly recognized as a really good Bible of clauses, how to handle clauses. It's out there. I think there's ways to get it for free, but I'll leave that to you. In any case, staying up to date on this is really neat. If you need a guide to help you understand how this stuff works, this is a great tool. I'm a big fan of it.
Yep. So all those are available just as clicks as part of the presentation. And for those of you who have to jump for another meeting, we'll let you get out of here. Here's how you can get in touch with Reed. We appreciate you joining us today. We will also be answering all of the rest of the questions that are here. You have the session docs that are there. There's a little survey that you can have that you can give us a little bit of feedback on. But I'm going to go back up here, and Kelly Cole says, as a subcontractor, Prime sent documents that require 110 controls and ask if you're under a POA. You can have it. You can't have it both ways. How do you mitigate this? Any idea on that one, Reed?
Let me think about that. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a struggle, right? Because you want to do the right thing. If there's a lot of lazy management in here, you can't have it both ways. It's really tough. I would say there needs to be a little bit of a cultural shift between the relationships between prime contractors and contractors. I'm hearing more about, maybe with this change in reducing some of the compliance and complexities of requirements and reporting, that might ease some of it, but that's yet to be told. I really cannot say. I think we're in a time of uncertainty and everybody's got to stay tuned.
Sorry, hold on one sec. Didn't mean to get that through there. So did you get your computer back up and running yet?
Let me see if I can have Mike share it instead, because my computer is not working. I could talk him through it.
Okay, cool. Mike, you there? Make sure Mike has permission to share. Hold on.
Yep, I'm here. Let me just see if I can get logged in here. I must
All
have
right.
timed out. I can
Fantastic.
screen share here, Reed, if you want to.
Yep, go ahead and
Take-
start sharing your screen and we'll pop it. We'll give everybody a dose of it. We're gonna show you what Clause Manager is. It's relatively new, right? Right, Mike?
Yeah, this is our latest and greatest offering. So what we're looking to do is basically simplify, flowing down clauses. We've got this online portal. This is an environment I've sort of set up for myself, just to sort of give you a quick look at what we've got. On the main dashboard, what we have here is a live feed of the data. So I've got all my clauses loaded in now. These are my FARs, DFARs, and others. And so what information it's giving me here is everything that's been approved, needing approval, or is currently being edited, worked on. So I've got full visibility. So if you're in the leadership of the contracting world, and you've got resources who are reporting to you, you will have full visibility. They can submit anything for approval, and then you can sort of have a look at anything that's in here and approve it, keep a full audit trail. So we've got a couple of beta users currently using this now who've also got access to this dashboard that's feeding information through. And then what we've got here on the left is we've got the menu. And if I click onto here, what we've got is a full list of all the clauses that are loaded in. So I've got all the latest and greatest from acquisition.gov. As you can see, mine are all fully approved so far. And you can look through the statuses and isolate them into different categories and sort of take a look at what's in there by status or by their clause type, or even export all the clauses. And naturally, obviously, you can add new ones and edit and see the full body of text as you're going through.
So Mike, why don't I pour some color on that for the community that's listening to this? So obviously, the step one in managing these types of things, whether you're doing it in Excel or using a system like this, is starting with a library of clauses where you can maintain and track different versions and different subtext within each one of those clauses. If you click into one of those clauses, once you pop one open, and I'll talk through it, obviously there's a lot of relevant data that could be populated into a clause. If you want to capture the clause body text or have a direct feed from it, obviously you're going to want to do that for the version that is applicable to that clause at the date of the time. So you want to be able to manage clause versions within your library. Man, some of you might be saying, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of administration. But if you're not doing it, the alternative is reading through your contract every single time. So our vision with this is to enable users to have a direct feed to a repository of clauses so that they can instantaneously have access to all the clauses and versions that are coming out from the government at any given time. And you can select those clauses when you're accepting a contract and track that version against a contract and be able to turn it with a flick of a switch to share those to your suppliers in a purchasing portal type of tool within our system. So in a perfect world, you can also be able to scan the contract and get rid of the administration and have it automatically populate these clauses. And that's something we're working on and going towards in the future. Right now, you'll see there's all the data that somebody might care about when they're managing a clause. They have your title, your versions, the applicable regulations, all the body text, possibly even if it's vendor specific, prime contract specific, or even if it's only relevant for a specific time frame. Once you have all that data and you've agreed to what's in there, you can actually go into the clause selection section of a contract for a contract you have that's being awarded. So if you go into the contract section of this, Mike, users can create contractual structure data for their operational contract information at the line item level, at the overarching contract level, at the BOA level, it doesn't matter. At the purchase order level, at the delivery order level, they can track the specific clauses, the relevant clause information
And you can even go down and select the clauses from your library and say, these are the clauses that apply to my contract. This is an example of one we've already done, but it's as simple as going assign a clause from my contract and pick and choose. These apply to me. There's even some logic that you can do to set up, say, hey, these are only applicable for this customer, or hey, these are only applicable if it's a certain threshold of value, or whatever type of logic you might want to think about. Some of that's available too in the filtering down. And then when you're ready to say this contract is great, I'm going to submit it for approval. I can submit it for approval and create some workflow around it. And if you're the approver, fine, you can take the approval of it and move it forward. But once you get to the point where you're ready to say, hey, I've got this contract that I'm ready to perform on, now I need to go out and get some support from my supply chain. I can go out and create purchase documents or reference the purchase documents that I'm sending to my contractors and create a summary of all the clauses that were on my contract and automatically say, go look at what's on my contract, and I can make a decision on which ones should flow down to my purchase order, or if it's all of them, great. You can do it with a click of a button and systematize this and meet all of your DFARS requirements to track all those things that you need to do from the contract and create a direct link systematically to your supplier's PO. So that's the vision of this tool. There's even a future flow down vision of it, and being able to do this systematically and directly interact with your suppliers in here. That's going to be functionality we're working on in the future. So you might see some of those people on the call and be sending them a direct PO and supplier information, or even if it's just an RFI directly through this, so you can go out and get estimates from folks. So there's a lot of different ways you can use this. There's a lot of different ways things can be staged or even worked in a process flow for approval. But we're pretty excited to at least help people who don't have a big ERP system, who need to track and say, what are the clauses that are out there? Which ones are relevant to my contract? And which ones of those should be directly tracked and issued out on purchase orders to my supply base? And it's a great, easy way to do that if you don't have a tool today.
And so ideally, Reed, what you're saying is eventually you could have all your people on the system and communicate it straight down through the system. But even if they're not on the system, and let's say it's a one-off on a, like you said, on a PO, they can create it and then flow those down through right through email or something, right?
Yep, absolutely. That would be the whole purpose. You could send somebody notifications that these are your clauses that you are going to expect to accept, and you can even directly interact with them through that way too.
Yep. Ideally, everybody buys into Clause Manager and everybody's on it. Then you guys are ruling the world, obviously. And but the idea is, hey, we're helping each other maintain the clauses and showing the acceptance, so that when you do the audit, is there a place where you can kick out what your subs have agreed to, and then be able to show that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a million ways you could try to use that. Depends on how much data and interaction you want to do with your suppliers. But there's going to be some helpful decision-making tools continuing to be added to this, whether that's I need some help evaluating what my clauses are, or I need some help deciding and making sure that these parameters apply when it's only shared with my PO and my supplier for these specific reasons. And so you'll see that there's some usability added to this as time goes by for that reason.
Yep. So, and you guys, so you're out of beta now because you had you're on your right. But it's early adopters. That's where you are right now.
That's right. I think Mike, you got some information on that. You're working some early options before we formally release this to public. If anybody's interested in exploring this, adding requirements to our product and or want to get in on a great deal today, we can certainly have those discussions.
Awesome. I'm going to pop this up for everybody as we're right at the top of the hour. We appreciate you sticking around for a couple of extra minutes to see it. If you'd like to be in the early adoption, like you needed this yesterday, we have there's please hop on board. I know you guys are really still looking for great feedback and inclusion. But if you're looking for it when it's absolutely released, that'll be when's your release date?
July 14th, Dave.
July
That's when
14th.
we're
So we're
looking.
just 3 weeks away, guys.
Couple of weeks
That's
away.
awesome.
That's it.
So that's great. So just let us know about that. We'd love to have your insight. And I'd like you said, Mike, is being able to incorporate what they need and being top drawer. Because anytime you're developing a system, I've developed some myself. I always love to get the feedback from early adopters, and we appreciate the folks that are signing up for that. So there you go. Let's see if there's any other questions. Let's make sure we answer them. And I'm gonna pop Reed's slide back up on my side. So if you guys want to talk with Reed or anything like that, just want to say, hey, thanks for joining us, sticking around for seeing how things were. Reed's back live. Look at that. He's skinny again, but that's all right. We got him.
And I just wanted to
So,
say thank you to everybody who wanted to join today. Happy to discuss, collaborate with anybody who's dealing with similar challenges, trying to connect the different process streams within their business and how I've helped some other people do that. Whether you're an SAP user, not an SAP user, you got a system or not, please feel free to connect with me. Think about these industry challenges that we're continuing to try to solve and think about how we can make this industry better within this space.
They are big deals. Contract flow down is one of the biggest deals that you're going to have as a contractor, federal contractor for sure. So great stuff, Reed. Appreciate it. Any last minute questions before we jump out of here? I want to make sure I'm just taking a look at this. Kelly says you're always improving. So a POA is inevitable. That was a couple minutes ago. Just want to make sure you saw that one, Reed. So, all right. Any last minute things you want to say, Reed?
No, this is great. I appreciate your time, Dave. Always fun to talk about this stuff. It's an ever-changing environment. Everybody stay on top of it. Make sure you're checking things and holding everybody accountable, and you'll be fine.
Love it. Appreciate it, man. Well, thanks again. Great stuff. As always, great to see you. And we'll see you next time, Reed. Thanks much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you.